Hi, my name's Eric, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk once again about Tinashe. So I didn't plan on making 4 Tinashe videos in a row. I was planning on breaking up that series of Tinashe videos with my reaction to FKA Twig's new album Magdalene this week, but Magdalene got pushed back a couple weeks, and then Tinashe conveniently announced her brand new single this week, so I figured if I'm gonna become a Tinashe channel, there are worse things to be. Also, it's nighttime right now where I am because I am here for the premiere of the new single, so I'm trying out some lighting. Hopefully it's working out. All that said, we are here to usher in Tinashe's brand new album cycle, but before we do that, please let me know in the comments down below if there are any video topics you'd like to request, and please subscribe to be here when I post new videos every week. Also, stay tuned after the reaction if you'd like to be here when I give you some channel updates and some general news. And without further ado, here is Die a Little Bit featuring Ms. Banks. Okay, cool. You know, I like to cut it off at those first few lines, and here she can't breathe. There's pressure on her and she's overwhelmed and she feels constrained, and people are just sort of talking at her. All of that together tells us that she's feeling powerless. It feels like she's neglecting her mental and physical health and prioritizing her career goals, which is something that she's struggled on past albums and mixtapes. It's also worth noting the use of the passive voice, I have been told. It makes her feel like she's just receiving these actions and she's having trouble fighting back or exerting force. But now, she's figuring things out, realizing that the situation is bad, and if I had to guess from her past music, I think the way she's going to address that feeling of powerlessness and of feeling constrained is by breaking free through the club. That's just my guess, we'll see what happens. There's like a house beat underneath. Okay, so we have this refrain of wasting time and waiting for something, and at the risk of assuming too much, it really does feel like she's talking about her recent struggles with the music industry machine and all of its BS. Because first off, she talks about someone without a soul, and that's something that she's brought up on Soul Glitch from Night Ride. The idea of looking for a soul in someone who doesn't have one and that bringing you down. But also there's this sort of trope in a lot of media of the sort of soulless, heartless, Hollywood power broker who works against the interests of artists. It doesn't seem like all that much of a stretch that she is saying that the people around her in this industry, like she's talked about on a song like Cold Sweat, are really just in it for the money or, you know, for something other than the soul. And then when she mentions breaking through, it doesn't just sound like an emotional breakthrough, which this song I think represents, but also the idea of being a breakthrough artist, which has been a lot of the discourse around her in like music publications. So understandably, she's fed up with having to look for a soul in the people around her and to break through to them one way or another. Drink, smoke, dance, ooh. Vibe a little bit, die a little bit, drink, smoke, dance. Okay, first of all, this like refrain is super cool. It almost sounds like a machine delivering or receiving orders. There's like a mechanical thing, like I am doing this because I have to. It's like automatic or involuntary. But that general weirdness is sort of tipping us off to the fact that there is, of course, underneath the, you know, clubbing and the dancing, which I had, of course, anticipated from, you know, the opening verse and from Tinashe's other music, that there is emotional instability that undergirds that. So that's why she set up Vibe a Little Bit in parallel with Die a Little Bit. On the outside, she's vibing. She is doing these literal things of dancing and drinking and indulging, but on the inside, she's dying, and that's where the flatness of this delivery comes from. Of course, not flat in terms of interest, but the sort of monotone thing tells us that there's something off emotionally. Okay, cool. So we had, I believe, her brother actually in the background, like as an adult now, and in the foreground, I think as a child, talking about partying and dancing. Again, the adult voice has that sort of monotone thing going on of just saying, who like to party, over and over like a machine. Sort of in the vein of something like, late 90s, early 2000s dance music. But it also fills a similar role to, I think, what Tinashe did on the song Gold Teeth from Blood Orange's mixtape Angel's Pulse, which I reacted to earlier this year, where she's talking about feeling nice, feeling fine, but also being cold at night. And here there's a similar thing. I like to party and dance and drink and go out and whatever, but underneath that all, I'm dying. And then with the adult voice and the child voice, we have this push and pull, I think, basically between, like, wanting this childlike freedom of expression and being, forced into a mold, the sort of stifling nature of the industry. It's not quite so literal. There isn't really a lot of stuff lyrically going on with regard to age, but it's just sort of a feeling. You're suddenly aware of the rift between the spirited child and these monotone adults.
You got to smoke, I like to get by. Smoke, I need enough to last the whole time, to last the whole night, to last my whole life. You got the room, I take what.
Okay, to last my whole life. This definitely brings to mind In Case We Die, and especially Chainless. This idea of, like, the last night on Earth being like a last hurrah. It's not uncommon to connect mortality with clubbing, surprisingly, in a lot of dance music. But it works especially well in the context of this song because it represents not only a breakthrough, but a breaking point, right? So she's crossing over, again, like a sort of death, just like on In Case We Die. She's saying, I don't know if I can take this anymore, so might as well dance and drink and smoke myself to death.
I rock the party that at your body. In that Da Vinci and Cavalli. I want that white, that Bamba Cardi. Cause it's been a long night, but it ain't like. Want a big bag, wrist on frostbite. I came, my son, need an encore. I do the dash, pedal to the floor. Got the whole front row screaming, give me some more.
Okay, that verse meshed so well with the rest of the song, especially with a lot of the emphasis on rhythm over melody. So it was really fun, but there was also a lot going on there lyrically. She mentions being a ghoul, which could be just sort of the typical, like, hip-hop flex of, like, I'm so powerful, I'm like a monster or supernatural, but again, for every image of excess and of, like, celebration that we have, there's an equal and opposite image of injury and of death. So we get the Givenchy and the Bacardi with the frostbite, which again, it always circles back to coldness, and the ghoul, the ghost or spirit or dead thing. She also mentions driving quickly and presumably recklessly with, pushing the pedal all the way down. So we're pushing excess to the point where it shatters and seeing where the shards fly.
You do?
Yeah! This is definitely one of her darkest approaches to the club so far.
This is probably my favorite part because we just get to be free.
That was an important line right at the end there. This is my favorite part because you get to be free. That's what I was talking about before, the sort of childlike freedom of going to the club. Not that the club is somewhere where kids should go, but you know what I mean. Like, children don't have inhibitions. Someone in the club doesn't have inhibitions. It's about freedom. This song definitely could be described as Deconstructed Club, which is very much in line with what Tinashe does thematically. She takes the club as an idea and deconstructs it. Because at the beginning, like, she couldn't breathe. Just like on Chainless, she moved from constriction to freedom in the club. And just like on In Case We Die, she is crossing over. She's reached a threshold. It's some sort of major life moment, like a breakup or a breakup basically with the music industry. And in that way, those changes are like a death. And in that crossing over, she experiences heaven-like freedom. So while we've gotten that idea lyrically on songs like Chainless, here she also mimics it with the sound of the music. It's so club, it's so synthetic, and so, like, almost PC music surreal that it makes us question where emotionally the sort of catharsis of the club comes from and what it creates. Again, at its core, it's not different from what Tinashe has talked about before, but I think this particular approach sonically is new for her and really intriguing and matches the sort of minimalist visual approach she's taken with the promo for this album cycle. It's sort of more minimalist sounding, which of course I'm probably missing some production subtleties because I'm not wearing headphones, but it definitely feels less maximalist than something like Chainless, something like her early mixtapes where there were a lot of synths and a lot of big walls of sound. And it's especially a counterpoint to something like Tuon, where she was really just having fun there and there was a lot of sound going on and it felt more fluid and there was a lot more harmony going on. On the one hand, there's sort of less of a human touch in its sound and more of a human touch personally because she has, home audio of her brother and, gets her family involved and it's more personal. So that sort of rift is very interesting, and I'm really fascinated to see where she goes with that on this album. You can of course expect me to react to the new album when it comes out, and don't worry, I will react to Blackwater at some point. So that's the reaction, and now I'm just going to get into some channel updates. Like I've mentioned before, I'm in grad school, and I knew it was going to be a lot, but I didn't know it would be this much. It's not just a 9-to-5 job. It's a 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. job. So it is still my goal, of course, to post every week. I will commit to that, but if I ever have to miss a week, I will let you know. I won't leave you hanging. I have reactions to 2 albums coming out soon, Janet Jackson's The Velvet Rope and Kylie Minogue's Impossible Princess, as you requested. Also, those videos are pre-filmed because of my school schedule, so if when they come out I look a little bit different, that's why. But I also wanted to give you the heads up that I will definitely have to split my Janet reaction into 2 parts because The Velvet Rope is a surprisingly long album, as is Impossible Princess, so I'll try to get that 1-to-1 video. It might be 2 though. I'm not trying to stretch out and cover as many weeks as I can. It's just, there's hours of footage of me reacting to those albums, and I don't want to make you have to sit for an hour and a half. Also, I've gotten multiple requests for Caroline Polachek's new album, Pang. I don't think I'll be able to get a reaction to it out. I'm sorry. However, I can say that I have listened to that album, and I really like it. I was listening to it again today for the 4th or 5th time. It's so good. So do expect me to talk about Pang in my end of 2019 videos. So also, that's another thing. Some videos that I'm planning are my favorites of 2019, and then also, since 2020 is right around the corner, which is kind of existentially terrifying, I'm also going to do my favorites of the 2010s. But all of that, of course, will come sometime around the new year, and in the meantime, please do keep the requests coming and subscribe to be here when I post new videos every week. Thank you so much for being here, and until next time, that's it.